You are not ready to buy a home if you have not first run these numbers. So, I'm a homeowner and I'm also a financial educator. So, my job today is to teach you how to make sure that you can afford the home that you want and not be house poor or be a prisoner to your own house because you can't afford anything else. That's not any fun. And the reason why I also believe that this is super important is because I wish I had had the mindset that I have now back when I was buying a house, because we probably would have done things differently. And my wife can agree to that as well. Um, but I think a really big issue that comes with the home buying process is not just your internal feelings about buying a house, but also your debt to income ratio and your financial readiness for things that happen outside of buying a house. And then also the external pressure. One thing that really stuck with me throughout the home buying process was feeling like I was being left behind, being told that you're throwing your money away if you're renting, which is not true. I know better now. Or that, you can start building your wealth if you own a house. But realistically, I will say this. When you buy a house, yes, you are purchasing an asset that will grow, but you're also using the asset and you have to maintain the asset, right? Within the first year that we bought our house, we had our refrigerator break down within the first 3 or 4 months. We had to, um, we had to have a plumber come out to fix something that had happened in the kitchen. We had another plumber come out to fix something that happened in our shower. Our One of our garage doors broke and we had to get the motor replaced. We ended up having another plumber come out not long ago to fix the kitchen sink again, which had been a problem the first time. We had landscapers mess up our irrigation, so we had to get our sprinkler system fixed, and then that ended up leaking. So last year we had to fix it ourselves because we couldn't afford to pay someone to come do it, and we could see what the problem was, so we figured that out. There's so much nuance, and I don't want to discourage you, but I want you to know that you just have to be ready, right? If you are someone who's like, I don't have any time to maintain the nuances and maintain all of the things that keep your house safe and without total destruction that costs you thousands of dollars, you need to be ready to financially cover that or do it yourself. And if you're not ready to do any of those, then you probably need to wait. um, I will always tell any of the clients that I've worked with or family and friends, buy when you are ready to buy. And not just feeling ready to buy, but when you are financially ready to buy. And that's going to be the number one thing that most people just aren't. They're not running the numbers. And the worst part is because they're not running the numbers, they are going into the process thinking, oh, yeah, we can afford this. This looks nice. Don't get caught up that it's super sexy when you walk in. Um, more times than not, it's gonna be more expensive than renting, but in the end, like 30 years down the line, because it's normally a 30-year loan, it will pay off. But 30 years compared to now, it's not really worth it all the time. And there are plenty of millionaires who don't own homes at all. They may have, some investments in real estate, but there's other ways to do that without actually owning the property, without having to maintain and manage the property, whether you're in it or whether you are renting it out to someone. So today I'm going to tell you about the home buying process and how to make sure that you are affording things appropriately. So let's get into that. Okay, first things first. You want to have a stable income. Stable doesn't just mean, oh, I can for sure secure $5,000 a month, no matter what I do. You want to also show the lender, the bank or the credit union that you're going to be getting your home loan through, that you are getting stable income through a stable job. And if you are a entrepreneur, you really have to show them that you are capable of securing your income. This is important because they are about to lend you some money, and buying a house is literally one of the biggest purchases that you will ever make in your life. Like, really think about that. And they're about to lend you a whole lot of money for that, and they have to trust that they are going to get their money back in return. They are investing in you, and you are investing in the home. So if you're in the home buying process, don't be in the process of looking for a new job. Um, That's unless it's like, you're looking to level up and promote within your company, that's great. But if you're in the process of buying a home, as much as you can avoid it, try to not switch jobs. Another good thing is to also make sure that you have an emergency savings outside of down payments and closing costs and things like that. Um, when we bought our home, we did not have an emergency savings. We literally dumped all the money that we had into the closing costs. We were lucky enough that the loan, the program that we got our loan through did not require us to have a down payment. Um, but at the end of the day, we still had a whole lot of money to put forth towards closing costs, and that was all of our money. And I mean, we moved in and we had a couple $100. Thank God nothing happened, and we were really riding on chance to not have any issues come up because we weren't financially ready to have any new issues come up as soon as we moved in. Another good thing to be aware of is your debt to income ratio. And so you really want to try and get your debt below 36% of your income. So if you've got $5,000 a month coming in, but you're spending, about $1,000 a month, on your car and in your student loans, and you've got some credit cards and things like that, they're probably going to be like, look, you're too risky. We're not giving you a loan. You don't look trustworthy to us. We cannot guarantee that you are going to pay this bill, because then you become a liability to that company. So think about it in that way. Okay. Another thing is having a good, decent credit score. You don't have to have an 800. You don't even have to have a 750. We had pretty decent credit scores, but I know people who have gotten good rates or decent rates anyway. They've gotten decent rates, in the high 600s, low 700s. But of course, the higher your credit score is, the better your rate will be. But a lot of the interest rate terms are going to be set by extenuating other factors that we don't really have any control over. When the Federal Reserve or the housing market is doing whatever it's doing, you're just going to be subject to the timing of when you're trying to buy that house. And if you end up getting a house and interest rates are like 8, 9%, if you're financially ready for it and we can afford it, then go for it. And in the future, you can look at either, refinancing or, doing a change of terms or something like that to assume a lower rate. There are options available, so you're not stuck with a high rate in the future if things change, if whether your credit score changes or the rate of the loan changes as well. And then, of course, be realistic about down payment. So there's a lot of talk, and a lot of this is very old school, about having to have 20% down to buy a house. You do not have to have 20% as a down payment. That is astronomical. And the last time I checked, when people were really doing 20% down, was back when houses were a lot more affordable compared to the income. Right now, incomes are not inflating at the same prices as houses have increased in value. You can't do 20%, and that's okay. We didn't do 20%. We did 0% down because that was the term, that was the loan agreement that we had, and we just had to pay closing costs. More realistically, there are financial advisors and there are, realtors and real estate investors who will more more likely try to tell people that they should just do about 5%. That's totally up to you. The reason why 20% is kind of that standard number is because of PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. So this is just an insurance of whatever you are putting down less than 20%, there's an extra insurance cost on top of that, to ensure that you are going to be paying, or that they can get some collateral in case for some reason you fall through and you can't pay your bills. But that doesn't last forever. You are not locked into PMI forever, right? So just like any other debt, you can pay forward some more, and this includes mortgages now too. You can pay forward some more to help get the PMI down, and when you've gotten to 20% of your loan, just call up the lender. Just let them know, hey, I've met 20%. If they don't do this automatically, just call them up. I've met my 20%. we need to get this PMI removed immediately, right? And they have an obligation to do that. So it's just an insurance for the bank to say, hey, we're taking some collateral just in case because you put a little bit down, but it's not too bad. And that's also something you need to factor into your numbers when we get into your affordability and how much you should be spending. So, a quick story about our home buying process. We have family who helped us secure our home, took us through this process, and really helped kind of guide us because we had no idea what we were doing. We were just like, hey, we love this house. We want to go see it. We came in, we fell in love. We're like, this is the one. And they helped us secure this. And one thing I was not prepared for was that a few months later, I'm pretty sure we were in the house for like 5 or 6 months. The property taxes had gone up because the house appreciated, which means that the value went up. And so when your house faces appreciation, value goes up, which sounds great. It also increases your property taxes. And so at first I'm thinking, oh great, we're already making some good gains on this house. This is a great investment. Until you realize that it's going to jack up your payment every month, and you're like, oh, okay, I can't afford that. Right? Especially when you run these numbers. So be prepared, have a little bit of wiggle room, be prepared to know that just in case the property tax prices are going to be impacting your payment, that you're ready for that. You need to be ready for anything at this point because that impacts not only your taxes, but if your taxes go up, so does your insurance. So we were looking at a huge increase, and had we not had family members who were in the real estate business pretty much telling us and guiding us and helping us through this process, we'd be stuck with a high payment because I didn't know what to do. I sure as hell didn't know what I was doing. I just looked at the numbers and got scared because that was a huge chunk of our income being thrown into something that was not even a part of the home equity in itself, right? So when you're thinking about buying a home, you need to think about the principal, so the actual cost of the home. If you see a house on Zillow and it says $250,000, that's just the principal, right? You still have to pay for interest, you still have to pay property taxes, and you still have to pay insurance. And then if things break down, you got to pay for all of that too. So because the value of homes may change, taxes will change, insurance will change, and then other things just get expensive. We live in a economy that is very inflationary, especially right now. And when you're needing repairs, if lumber is more expensive, if aluminum and PVCs for some reason are more expensive, then you also have to take into account that people who need to come service your home are going to charge you more because they're paying more for materials, and then they're needing to charge you for that increase so that they can still make a profit as a business. It's a lot to think about, and these are things that I wish I had known to be aware of before even getting into the house. I just thought, let's get the house. Let's be homeowners. Let's just do this. Let's start building wealth. But little did I know how stressful I would feel about the whole process, and how much money we had to be ready to foot the bill when things just didn't go the way that we needed them to. So now I'm going to walk you through how you can best calculate the amount of house that you can afford. And so this is going to take into account your income and your monthly housing costs. And your monthly housing costs, again, are going to be the entire payment of the principal, the interest, the taxes, the insurance, and then also hopefully, saving for other things too, and your utilities. So housing costs should really include all of that. Okay. So now we're going to calculate how much house you can actually afford. Okay. So today for these numbers, we're going to keep it very simple. We're going to say that your take home pay after taxes and insurances and hopefully your 401k, that you take home about $5,000. Let's just keep it simple. You may be taking home more or less, but we're just going to use a simple number. Okay. So this is your take home pay. Realistically, I want you to keep your housing costs at about 30% or less. Okay. So 30% for housing or less. And this is going to be accumulated with your monthly budget. Okay. So realistically, that's going to be about $1,500 every single month for housing. Okay. So I want you from here to be very intentional about how much house you feel like you need, especially for your family structure. Now, this scenario we're running it for a single person. You may be a two income household where this number may go up or it may be the same. You may have children and you need different spaces, so that's going to increase maybe the square footage or how much house you feel like you need. But get creative with this, and look around too, because you may be finding that at $1,500, let's say that gives you approximately $220,000 worth of the principal for the home. Maybe maybe you cannot afford this in the neighborhood that you thought you wanted to be in, or maybe there's a zip code that you're like, it's so expensive in this zip code. Then just look outside that zip code. You do not have to settle for a garbage can if you're finding a garbage can at this price. You may have to either move outside of the area that you want it to be in, but ultimately, I do want you to get what you value out of your home, right? That's going to be things like, being near good school districts. That's a good thing to take into account, as well as, having access to grocery stores, maybe some parks, maybe some pools, parks and pools, maybe a gym that you love. And then overall, most importantly, being around a community that you super, super, super highly, highly value. Community is really important. So I'm not going to negate that any of these things don't matter, but your community is going to be important. These things are also very good because if you can find a nice home that you really like within your price range, right, for that principal, this is also nice if at one point you decide you don't want to be in that house, then you have a better resale value. If you are, maybe not with the gyms, but if you are, that's just something I value. If you're going to be around areas that have a lot of this, plus shopping and restaurants and things like that, that's also really important. So be intentional. Go in with your numbers. Basically, don't let the lender tell you how much you can afford. If I haven't said anything important today, the most important thing I'm going to tell you right now is do not let the pre-approval dictate how much house you can afford. The pre-approval is just to tell you and the seller how much house you are capped at affording. We were pre-approved for, I want to say, $60,000 more than we were willing to spend. We were not going to that pre-approval rate. And it was a good number because we had some pretty good stable jobs, but when we talked to the lender, we're like, absolutely not. I do not want, I don't want a house of that price because we would be house poor. House poor being that we are paying so much for our housing costs that we cannot afford to live our life. I love to travel. I love to eat. I love to have fun. And none of that can happen if I am just paying for my house. Because at this point, my house better give me all of that included. And I knew it didn't. And I know that no houses around here do that. So don't let the pre approval tell you how much you can afford. That's just how much they are willing to cap for the amount that they're going to give you when they are lending you money to purchase this home. That's it. The same thing happens with other loans like auto and things like that. They'll tell you, oh, you're pre-approved for this much. Great. But I know my own numbers. Stay in control. Don't let anyone else tell you your numbers. You stay in control. That's what we're doing today. We're figuring that out and we're staying in control. So to end this out today, I'm just going to invite you to run your numbers and see how much house you can actually afford before you get your pre-approval, before you start looking at houses. It's going to be an eye-opening experience, and you may be a little discouraged, especially if you see I can't afford that much, and the houses that I'm looking at are way more, maybe twice as much as what I want. Then that's a good indicator, and that's okay. Don't put yourself in a position where you cannot live your life. That's not any fun. And I knew when we got our pre-approval, ours was $60,000 more than what we actually wanted to spend. I knew I didn't want to spend that much money because I knew that we wouldn't be able to enjoy ourselves if we spent more than that. And even with the prices changing because the value went up and then the taxes went up and then the insurance went up, I knew that this was going to be a process that we couldn't just play around with, right? It's easy when you are renting to be like, "Hey, you know what? I don't want this anymore." And you can buy out, right? You can buy out of your lease. I've done that plenty of times. I mean, it's been worth it. Or you can just ride out the lease until it's done, depending on how much time you have left, and you can go to something cheaper. There's not that much flexibility when you're in a house, and a lot of the cost of the housing is not dictated by you. So the one thing that you can control is how much that you buy into initially. That's pretty much it. Things break, interest rates change, things are inflated, especially when you're needing to do maintenance, or buy new appliances, and you cannot control for that. That's just the bottom line. I don't want to be discouraging to you. I love my home. I wish I had known more. And so I'm telling you about a lot of these things today. And I'll continue to tell you throughout the series. But ultimately, I just want you to be smart. I want you to run these numbers and I want you to be intentional, because there was a good talk that I was listening to not long ago where the speaker said, along the lines of, renting is not throwing away money, just like going to a restaurant is not throwing away money, right? You could go to a restaurant and say, "Oh, I could have made this at home for way cheaper." But could you and would you have? Not all the time. And if you go to a restaurant, you're paying maybe 30, 40, $50 for an excellent meal, especially if it's your favorite restaurant. And your meal did not cost that much to make. It did not cost them $50 to make your meal. You are paying for the service, which in turn goes to paying their employees. And also, most oftentimes, it's going to paying the real estate of that business to keep it open. If you think about it like that, then you don't think about your favorite restaurant being a waste of money. Just like renting should not be a waste of money. You are ultimately paying for a roof over your head and you're paying for flexibility. I I dread not taking advantage of all of the maintenance things that should have been done when we lived in an apartment. Um, because ultimately I was like, they'll fix it. And if they don't, like, it's their building, it's not mine. You know what I mean? And because it wasn't my responsibility to care. It's theirs because they own the building. And when things did break and it was inconveniencing for me, I just type in a little work order, and then they fixed it the next day. That was awesome. When things break here, God, I gotta do some shopping around. I gotta see who's trustworthy. I gotta look at all these Google reviews. I gotta look on Yelp. I gotta call them, see if they're gonna come out and do a free estimate, because not everyone does free estimates now because they have to drive to you. So now a lot of businesses are charging you for um, just them coming out. And they'll only give you a free estimate if you buy their service. And if you don't buy their service, then most times they're just going to charge you for the estimate. So you're spending money anyway, right? There's a lot that goes into it. And if you're someone who's like, yeah, I'm ready for that, then go for it. I love my house. I wouldn't change a thing. And every second that we're in it, I wouldn't say every second, but every day that we're in it, we enjoy it. We're not unhappy. We love our neighborhood. We love our HOA is actually pretty awesome. We love everything that's building up and developing around us. And we know if at some point in the future, if we decide to sell this house, it's going to be a fabulous return. But I will say I do miss the flexibility. I miss I miss being like, you know what? We don't want to live here next year. Let's just leave. You don't get that flexibility when you have a house. It's not that easy. You could move out of your house, but it may take months. It may take months for it to sell. And guess who's responsible for making that payment? You. Our house was on the market. I think it was 6 months before we bought it, which was excellent for us because we had the power to make a good deal. But for 6 months the house was on the market, which meant that the owner had left and was still paying for the house. And I could see, because there was a camera that was installed at the house, that they were still, having to get the yard done and having to run the appliances, the sprinklers and all of that. That is just that's a lot of money, and you got to be financially ready for that. And so we will be financially ready when it comes to selling the house. But for right now, we are enjoying it. We are saving in our home fund for when things break down, because that seems to be a trend. but ultimately it's an enjoyable experience, but it is definitely one that you need to be financially prepared for. So I will see you next time for part 2. Check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you like content like this, I want you to subscribe. I want you to comment. I want you to save or share with someone that you know who really needs this type of information. My name is Jerika. I'll see you next time.